So I'm James Williams, British fencer, been around a little bit, now obviously on the coaching development team at British Fencing, but prior to that I was a competitive athlete for quite a long time, so I've competed in a number of Olympic Games and major championships and done a few things over the years, I would suggest. So, when I was young and an aspiring, how can I put it, youth who wasn't interested in fencing at all, I used to watch stuff on the telly and so what's all that about, although I've got 3 brothers and we used to fight each other with my mum's knitting needles. That didn't go down too well sometimes because they got points on the end, haven't they? Points! And I was the youngest, so I was always the one that used to get thrashed. But I joined the forces, and in doing that I was introduced to fencing by a chap who was a very inspiring coach, a guy called Leslie Wellham. He unfortunately passed away a few years ago, but at the time he was a behemoth. He could inspire you to run through a brick wall, and he probably did do that as physical training instructor, even though he'd retired. And he just put a sword in my hand and said, "Look, you're going to do that." And I said, "Actually, I play football and I run track." And I didn't turn up for his first session, which was not the thing that you do in the force, as I understand, at the time. So after a little bit of sweating and cajoling, I was persuaded into joining this fencing club that he'd established, not too far from me actually. It's down in Dover, it's where I was based. And in military terms, I won a few things as a junior in the army. Are quite good if they think that you're reasonably good at sport, then they encourage you to do that.
And how old were you?
At that time, I was a young boy, so it's a bit like they've got an apprentice college now in Harrogate, so it was called Junior Leaders at the time, so I was 16, which is probably quite late, I should imagine, but so that journey helped me, and then I got to a reasonable standard, I think, within the forces. Obviously, I won a few things, and they said, "You better go and try and get into the national team because clearly that's what we're asking you to do." So I was fortunate to do that in 1991. And then a year later, because I was based abroad, so they posted me back. So first Olympics was Barcelona. And that was an experience on the horizon. So that's my rough sort of journey, a bit of military discipline that helped me along my way. So when you're in the forces, you need to be able to plan for anything. But more importantly, you need to understand who you are. And if you understand who you are and what you're capable of, then you're not bothered about what other people are, because you know your attributes. And my mindset, as a physical training instructor myself, maybe there's a bit of synergy there, is that you're used to pushing yourself to the limit, and then some. Because when you think you've stopped, you haven't, have you? You've got to keep going, and there are no real excuses for not being able to do that. So I think the psychology of combat, and bearing in mind skill at arms, it was a prerequisite for anyone that was in the military, particularly before you started firing weapons and stuff. You had to be able to go hand to hand and to do stuff with bits of steel called swords. So maybe there's a bit of a link there. And of course modern disciplines like pentathlon, with shooting and riding and running, it's a military discipline. So I think the core mindset of anyone that serves, or anyone that's in an environment where you've got to be clear about, one, your attributes, what you need to do and how you need to do it, and secondly, how you need to function as part of a team, is pretty fundamental to that. So I think you are able to call upon training that kicks in, and then the main thing I think about fencing is, because it is fighting, it's a stress response. So the one thing that you get conditioned to do under any circumstances is deal with challenge and stress under pressure. And I think that's probably the thing that helped me with my fencing from the military side. The other thing you got to remember is I'm a Yorkshireman, and in my neck of the woods, I'm a Huddersfield lad. You're surrounded by people who are saying, "Get on with it, lad. What you whinging about? You need to just crack on." And I think that kind of combination sort of is useful. But ultimately, everyone's an individual. Everyone responds in different ways, and you'll have different challenges that other people, perhaps with different backgrounds, can face more readily than I might have been able to. But if I'm looking back at my career, I think doing what I did and how I was challenged in early years, because I was into the forces at that age, did give me the tools to manage travelling. What's that about? It's just normal, right? Getting a sleeping bag, right? Meeting people that you don't know. Hang on a minute, you join the forces. You know nobody, unless you're joining with friends, of course. So you've got to meet people and encourage, and then dealing with adversity. And fencing is adverse. It's an adverse event, particularly in Sabre, because of the challenges of subjectivity and the calls that may or may not be right, wrong, or indifferent. They're a call, and you've got to deal with it. So that, I suppose, is where I think I got some help. So what I believe fundamentally is that you've got to be creative, but you've got to have an understanding as to what you're trying to achieve, what you're trying to achieve as an athlete, and try and impose your will on your opponent. And this is important, it really is, because the structure of fencing means that the common denominator, the thing that's always going to be constant wherever you are, is you. So you've got to know your style. But you've also got to be able to flex it according to the needs of the moment. And it's in the moment. So and this isn't something that, has just come along. It's my sort of understanding as to, one, competing over the years that I've competed, watching and learning and working with some great coaches who have given me some insight into how to adapt, how to support myself, when I've been challenged in a position. They've given me the tools, and the tools are always in here. You've got to think. You've got to understand. You can't just think, right, I'm going to do this move, because that's, you watch people on YouTube and think, oh, they're always going to do that. In reality, those people are going to change. Why? Because they can adapt. And the whole thing I think about being a fencer that can resolve challenge, first you've got to be able to exert pressure. And that means not giving your opponent opportunities to get easy touches. When you get easy touches, they're going, their confidence and their ability to then start using their tools will increase. So you've got to draw that down. You've got to be able to use and control distance. So my real focus, I think, is giving people the ability, which is what I used to be able to do, to move. So you've got to have good footwork. If you haven't got good footwork, it's difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's difficult, because you've got to then be able to adjust whether in attack or defence, regardless of what type of person you are. And some people like to be more assertive and aggressive. Some people like to be more, let's say, tempo fencers, I'll call them, who work off timing, so they're more patient. And you have to be patient, but the more able to wait in that moment and then change and do actions. I think to do all of that, you've got to be physically capable and resilient. That doesn't mean to say you've got to be a super person, but you've got to be able to last a bout, and another bout, and another bout, and another bout. You've got to be able to control your energy over 2 days and give 100% in every single match that you fence. Now, the 100% isn't going at 100 miles an hour, but it's you being able to do your thing throughout that match. So if I'm going to summarise that, being able to control distance, fundamental. Being able to think, but not just think creatively, to find solutions to challenge that will come in. And when you come up against somebody who is able to reverse it on you, you've then got to have some of the dark arts of saying, all right, what do I need to do to break this person up now? And that's when you've seen obviously some of the things. I had a way to do that because I could shout. And in the moment, when you put it to somebody, you can break their psychology sometimes. Yeah, look, I've seen, in Sabre, foil and épée, huge changes. Women being able to fence épée for the first time. I think it was about 1996. Think about it. Women fencing Sabre for the first time in 2004. Before you could cross over in Sabre. Then they stopped that because of obvious reasons, because it was just, what? The constant is that you've got a weapon in your hand. You've got to defend yourself with it and you've got to attack with it. The technique doesn't change. All that you've got now is a different level of fitness and energy. So in some cases when I was competing, I was probably one of the, I'm sure that people would accept this, more able, physically adaptable people. So some men between rounds are outside smoking. What's this about? And drinking lots of coffee with the caffeine going down. I never drunk coffee. In fact, caffeine was banned in our sport for a while. You couldn't, well, it still is to an extent, but you couldn't have more than a certain amount in your system. I think the changes are clearly the timings on the boxes. Some of the actions now, you've got to be, obviously, and this is where your fitness levels come in, but also your sports science elements. I knew a little bit about stuff, but I know a lot more now. And it's how you apply that, because we've got a lot more of an understanding about fencing as a sport, rather than saying, well, we're explosive, so we're similar to, I don't know, sprinters or squash players, because they do lunges and stuff like this, so we can use their training technique. No, we've got a lot more of an understanding about the requirements in physiological terms for fencing, and also the psychology of it. But the thing that stays the same is, you're on a piece that's 14 metres long, you're 4 metres apart, you've got a weapon in your hand, you've got somebody in front of you who wants to beat you. In any form, fashion they can. They want to take you down hard. So what are you going to do? So that's, for me, the difference. The context is just, we've adapted some of our training techniques. We've learnt a lot more, I think, about, and that's why some of the traditional schools of fencing that always used gameplay and scenarios to create that ability for the athletes to flex 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it could be this, that, whatever else, rather than just do the drill. Because when you're just doing the drill and the distance changes, the drill won't work. So what are you going to do? Independent speed of thought now. People are more tuned into that. And then I think purely from a fencing perspective, because you've now got technology, before you'd maybe come up against somebody and you say, well, I don't know anything about this person. Now you can just go on TubeU, and there are other platforms available, and watch. Look at your channel, Maris, and sort of get some understanding as to what's going on. And that gives you more time to prepare, particularly before major competitions, because you know who you're going to draw. And I think that's one of the biggest elements now, because it's a global sport, and it really truly is. And it's fantastic that we've reached out, from the European bastion to everyone now across the world being able to, not just in your hotspots where you might have exported coaches, whether in the old days, you'd have different countries because of the nature of the way in which they arranged and had relationships, lending people, their coaches to coach and develop. Now we've got a global sport, and that's the other thing. Coaches from everywhere are coaching every nation. So before you'd think you'd go into this thing and you've got somebody from X nation, you know what that X nation did, and it probably wasn't much, right? And I'm thinking, boy, and then you're looking, because it's one of your peers who's standing there coaching. And I think that's wonderful, because it gives the sport so much energy, and it also means that the sport grows, and the quality of our sport, because we're threatened in terms of the Olympics particularly, because everyone wants to have skateboarding or golf or this whatever else. Fencing's been in the game since 1896. It's one of the only original sports that's still there, and it needs to flourish, but we as a fencing community need to maintain that energy level, maintain the creativity. We've got some wonderful things in the background. I'm working on a couple of projects with some colleagues which might help as well with that regard. It's nothing to do with impacting on traditional fencing, but it's about trying to give a little bit more energy to the way in which people view the sport. I think that's one of the things that we need to do.
Okay, so you just touched on the growth of the sport globally, how there are so many more strong countries now. How do you think a country like the UK, Great Britain, how can we keep up with the ever increasing standard?
It's a really good question. We've got some brilliant young athletes, brilliant older athletes as well. One of the biggest things for me is maintaining structure. So our system at the moment within the UK means that we will work with our young ones at a club level, like this wonderful club down here in Canterbury. You can see it's all laid out, peace everywhere and whatever else. What a training environment. And the young ones who come from here, if they go to university locally, brilliant, they can stay and they'll retain their coaching links. But if they move somewhere else, we have the need to be able to create and maintain that wraparound support for them. So that's one of the key things, because we have too many young ones dropping out of the sport when they are just actually in the right space. In other countries, when you go into collegiate sport, that's another building block for you to then maintain your sport and then to go through those crucial years where, you know, you're going from, you know, senior school into FE college if you go to college, or you're in the upper sixth form, then you go to university. You got your educational stuff, because for us in the UK, whilst it's a brilliant sport, not many people, you can make a living from it, of course you can, but as a young person, you're not in the same framework as, say, somebody who's in an experienced country like, say, Italy or France, where those athletes have got opportunities to be in paid employment, be in university and fence and be creative. We've got, because obviously within the UK it's lottery funding that in essence maintains most of our sports, so you need to get to that level to maintain your lottery level, and that's a journey. So if you don't make those results from senior, and it is a results game, from your junior, senior, going into that space, and be able to be at a world level in order to be recognised for lottery funding within the UK, it might be sometimes challenging. But the main thing for me is money is one issue, but we can resolve those challenges. Continuity. Why do we often have to break Club X up or Club Y and Club Z? We need to bring people together, and we've been doing some of that work through our athlete development programme in British fencing, which is good. We bring our young ones together, cohort them over weekends, we'll go do residentials, and then they'll start to learn, and we're giving more inputs into that space. So you've got more people who have got experience, I would say, from lots of different elements, not just fencing experience, but we've got our sports psychs, we've got our talented sports physios, psychologists, everybody's jumping into that space. But it won't be enough unless we encourage the pipeline. We've got to do more to broaden the base, to give more people an opportunity to experience the sport. And in doing that, you then hopefully will get more people continuing through the various levels. Because we can retain people in our elite space because we've got a good quality of standard of coaching, I hope. To do that, we're seeing with our progressions, we've got young people, Deary taking a European medal in Sabre, gives you all the brilliant work that's been done in the London space, and we've got big up John Southfield and all the other people that are working in that area, because they're doing a great job. But the context for us is that we need more people that we can work with, and then what you'll get, success breeds success. When I was younger, there was loads of people who wanted to give there were fewer, but more people stuck. Because the prize was there and the prize was attainable. And as the world growth of fencing has meant that there are more people out there, you're getting 250 and sometimes 300 people in competitions. When I was competing, you'd get 200, in some, 180 in main, the average. Now it's 250 and whatever else. So where are those extra 60, 70 people coming from? From nations who have built a base, have invested in the future. If we don't give our young people a sense of this is a sport for you for life, we'll lose them because they're all talented. They can go to other sports, do other things. They've got other recreational pursuits that they want to do. There are more distractions in life and perhaps easier sports to do because fencing's hard. No, that's the thing. This is really important. It is hard, not just physically, but emotionally. As a coach now, it's hard because I sit there and I go, and I'm watching athletes, but I can't get on the piece for them, so I'll find the solutions. But the only the athlete you feel, when the athlete does well, perhaps doesn't reach the potential that they wanted to reach in that particular moment, that they feel it because you've been there yourself. And picking people up after those kind of events and motivating them to be able to understand that they have got the tools in their armoury to actually then go forward and do those other things, and to be the person that actually is not sat outside, watching people move forward in the competition, but are in the moment, are doing those things. We've been moving them on. We've had some brilliant results this season, particularly in our GB cadet girls have done a fantastic job. Our boys just made a semi as well in our junior space in the World Cup. Really confident of that, but it's down to you, the viewer of this message, particularly if you're in the UK, but if you're anywhere else, I don't mind. I want more competition, just bring it, because we're Great Britain, right? We will rise to the challenge. But we want to encourage people just to understand this sport, I've been in it now. My goodness me, telling me age, what am I now? 40 years I've been in this sport, near enough. And every day I wake up and I'm blessed to be able to contribute and to do stuff, because the sport has given me so much, so I can give a little bit back. And my little bit, I hope, will enable somebody, wherever that is, whether it's in the coaching space where I'm working with coaches or when I'm actually working with the athletes, to achieve their ambitions. And if they get wherever they're going to get, some people are going to go there, and there is anywhere that they want. That could be a county level, it could be a international level, it could just be a club level, it could just be that they're happy to go out and meet new people and do stuff. Then I've done my little bit. But as a performance athlete, we have got to create that willingness to put yourself out there, to understand that it ain't easy, to believe that you can do it, to know that you got the support, and you have, to achieve your goals. And when you achieve those goals, to recognise that that is normal. It's normal. You get that winning mentality, you get that doing mentality, things become more useful for you to do stuff. You do this, you do that, because when you do your thing, it happens. If it doesn't happen, you know why it doesn't happen. You can go back to the drawing board and recalibrate that quickly, rather than thinking you've got to do a load of rewiring of stuff. All right, so here's a lesson that I learnt. When you think that you know what you're doing and you can just go out there and take somebody down, stop and get rid of that thought. Because my biggest challenge, my biggest moment when I had done what I thought was the easy bit, and this goes back to the Sydney Olympics, I've beaten Zoltan Nemchek, he went on to do a few things. And I was complacent because I thought, it don't matter who's coming on. And that bit about being overconfident led me to a position where I was playing catch up, and even though I was catching up, it was too late. So if there's a lesson that I was going to say to anybody that's out there, particularly in the competitive space, you keep fighting every single touch until the referee calls halt, asks you to salute, and puts you to your side. You got to do that, because if you don't do that, what can happen is, oh, this is all right. And in Sabre, and the weapons, just one touch. I'll get the next one, just one touch. I'll get the, and you don't get the next one. And you're standing there thinking, what if? And the what if is down to you, because you didn't execute your plan, which is just fight every touch, be in the moment. If you do that, it doesn't matter where you are. If you're behind your head, you'll always be in the moment, and you'll always focus on the next action that you're going to do, not what your opponent's doing. Be aware of what they're doing, but be in the moment. The prize is always staying focused, and if you can do that, you're going to go through competitions. It'll serve you in good stead. When you're in training, do the same thing, because as you train, so shall you fight. And if you don't train to the moment, then you're never going to actually be able to replicate that same level of intensity and focus in the moment when it really matters. That would be my message to the millions, because I know that you've got a good audience, man.
That's excellent.
All right, that'll do for you.